My parents sat us down and were like, hey, we're getting a divorce. I remember throwing either a teddy bear or something, and it smashed all of the vases. My brain is telling me I feel this way, but then now I have parental figures telling me the opposite, and that's where I was in a dark place. And I said, if I ever became gay or if I had to ever come out, I would unalive myself. If I wanted to choose the easy way out, I would just say, okay, I'm straight and I don't have to deal with any adversity. I don't have to deal with any judgment. Yeah, it's called queer baiting, which I'm not a fan of, which I do see that a lot now. Queer baiting is
What if you found yourself in the middle of a terrible fight between the people you love the most? Or imagine holding a secret so powerful that it might just destroy those very people. What would you do? Today's guest, Tony award-winning producer Chase Thomas, knows exactly what that feels like, except he was a kid. Chase's story is one of resilience, rising out of a horrific divorce and turbulent childhood to become a leader in the performing arts world. With 7 Tony Awards to his name for Jagged Little Pill and A Christmas Carol, at just 27 years old, he has trademarked NTech to revolutionize entertainment technology. And now, as co-founder of Benny Entertainment Capital, he's reshaping the future of entertainment investing. Ambitious? Absolutely. But at his core, Chase Thomas is a survivor. Raw and real, here's Chase.
Woo!
Hey, my friend. What's going on?
Happy New Year's. How are you?
I couldn't be more happy, more honored, and so dang excited to introduce everyone to my very first guest, my very own homegrown Chase Thomas. You are. Woo! Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, everyone. Happy New Year.
You're only in your 20s still.
27, yeah. Very young. But a lot of older people are like, wait, your spirit is very much older. Are you sure you're only 27? I'm like, yes. I swear I am, but my experience really gave me that age, I think, and at a young age, being at the Center Stage Studio and starting there really gave me this confidence.
From the outside, it looks like you've had this perfect life, but there's so much more to you than all of these accolades and these wonderful things that you've done. I have known you since you were 7.
And you were very instrumental in my childhood, which is so gnarly. And I mean, we can get into it more, and I don't want to digress.
We are.
But yeah, it's just, I realize now, I think how I'm so strong as a person is I've had so many different people kind of be my parent, which is so wild, where sometimes even my own parents are like, oh, wait, we didn't teach you that, or where'd you learn that from, right? And it's, I think, from people like you who really came into my life and helped me become who I am today to teach, really. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because even from the outside, when I first got to know you and your family, it seems like you're like this golden kid from a picture perfect family in South Orange County and growing up with privilege, but that wasn't the case.
No.
It wasn't the case,
yeah,
was
and
it?
surprisingly, I did face adversity, and that came from my parents' divorce at a very young age, and I'm the eldest sibling of 5. My brother Hunter and I are really close. That's just because he's the second youngest, or second below me. And I actually helped him score a record label deal, which is awesome. I've really helped him out, as well as my sisters. My sisters were hardcore dancers. They actually yesterday were like, thank you so much for disciplining us. I was their disciplinarian. But again, I'm really close with all my siblings.
Was it a happy existence when you were, before the divorce, which we're going to get to in a second? Yeah. Was it happy? It felt like,
Oh my God, it was like a dream come true. I was spoiled up the yin yang. So were my siblings. I mean, it was the picture perfect family. Any kid would dream to have this, and I was so lucky and so spoiled too. And I didn't realize that until I was older or went through hell. But before, I was living the dream until one day it just came crashing down, and I didn't understand any of that.
How was it presented to you guys? I mean, how was the divorce presented?
Yeah, no, I still remember it to this day. I don't think it was during the holidays, but I remember there were some things going down, and I was like, okay, something's a little off, but I didn't really conceptualize it yet until my parents sat us down and were like, hey, we're getting a divorce. I remember throwing either a teddy bear or something, and it smashed all of the vases, and I ran upstairs and I locked myself in the closet, and I said, I'm not coming out until you guys are back together or don't get a divorce. Well, obviously that tactic didn't work. But I stayed in the closet for a long time, no pun intended. And I just remember it still to this day. I was smashing stuff and just didn't know how to handle all these emotions at a young age with 4 other siblings.
How do you think this affected all of you as your relationship? I mean, it sounds to me that you were very close before that.
Correct.
And, the normal
Yep.
fighting here and there. But after that, what was in particular did you notice about the
Yeah.
relationship between you and your brothers and sisters and your 2 parents?
Yeah, we had to pick sides, which is so wild. In a family, you're like, what? Pick sides? And that just kind of happens when ego's involved in a divorce, where it's like, okay, what kids like me? And especially in a custody battle, it really is like, who's the favorite, who has the most kids? I mean, that didn't work out in the end, but it was like, whose side are you on, right? And so a lot of us felt this agitation, this anger towards one another. I thought it personally was my fault. So I don't think kids understand in divorce that it isn't your fault, but you do think it is your fault. So here we are thinking, okay, I caused it or somebody else caused it. What do we do? And so there was just a lot of anger and a lot of teaming up.
Why did you think as a kid that it was your fault? Was there something that you did that you thought maybe that might be the reason?
Well, I kind of exposed something that was going on, and I was just like, hey, there's this situation, what's happening? And then a parent was like, what? Oh my God, blah, 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 blah. And that, I think, was the catalyst of them finally getting a divorce. So there was something that I saw that I brought up, was like, hey, this is going down, this is going on. And that was the catalyst for the divorce. I think that was the beginning of the iceberg.
It's funny right now, Chase, as you're talking like you're a kid again, that it's your fault. It wasn't. You know that, right? It was already going to happen. It wasn't because you said anything to anyone. And I mean, yeah.
I am in therapy. Therapy's good.
Yeah. It's never your fault. I mean, it's one of those things that, as and unfortunately I was there to witness a lot of the stuff that you went through, them coming in and fighting in front of other people, and how embarrassing that is for a child to see that and to look around and have people looking at you. What was, do you think, one of the most traumatic things that you can remember during that period that you witnessed?
It really was going to court or custody. There were some custody battles where I was like, wait, I'm getting pulled out of school to go down in his mediation, and they had little toys, but you were still talking to someone, and the person there was just asking these hard questions where you're like, I'm only 7 years old, what do you mean you're asking about X, Y, and Z? And so I really it was being pulled out of school to go to mediation, to go to court. And what's funny now, as an adult, I'm not afraid to go to court. Pretty traumatizing when you go a couple of times and it's for custody, and a lot of not good things, not fun things,
what kind of things are they asking a 7-year-old? I mean,
do your parents drink? Is there alcoholism involved?
Are you serious?
Yeah, I mean, they have to just say have you ever been SA'd? They go down the list where you're like, what the heck? And you're like, I don't even know what any of this stuff means. But I understand as an adult why they ask those questions, because they're looking for specific things to figure out what's going on really within the family unit. But as a child, you don't know, you can't consider.
I wonder,
I
guess and again, this goes back to how, I'm going to be honest with you, Chase. I tell people this when they know a little bit about you. I'll either say, I had a child at my studio that went through probably, and I've been doing this 25 years, the most horrible War of the Roses divorce.
Wild.
It was horrendous.
I mean, it's oversharing, but we had private investigators. We were being followed. And
no, it's not oversharing.
Pictures were being taken of us. I mean,
from who? From what side?
From a side that I'm not going to disclose. Just
okay, you don't have to know.
Yeah, just in case. Yeah. Because the purpose of this is I'm healing. I'm not the victim, even though there were some parts that I couldn't control. But I think it's just healing from it, understanding that they did okay in the circumstances that they were given. I think that's giving a lot of grace.
It is here, Chase.
A lot of grace.
I need you to. I know this. Here's the thing. I'm getting upset because I'm learning stuff right now that I didn't even know, that I didn't know you had to go to court. Oh gosh, this
wild.
It's okay to go through it, and no one, you're not a victim. The point of today is to help people, because there's so much more to your story. We haven't even brushed the surface.
Yeah.
You seem like you have everything for you, and the whole point of
Yep.
this is that you didn't.
Yeah.
You did it on your own for the most part, and
Yeah.
anyone watching this needs to hear a story that it has a good ending. So
Yeah. No,
not to get
yeah, I mean, I went from 7 years old to being 35. And I think with the divorce, I became a parental figure with that.
Yeah.
And I did do it myself. And I
You
actually
did.
helped raise my siblings. And now, I have not regrets, but there's a burden. I call it the older brother's burden, which we can get into later. But I did take
What
on a
is
lot
what
of
is that?
responsibility, where it's just being the parent, where I was
Yeah.
one of the disciplinary parents for my sisters. And I didn't really notice that until one of my sisters named Star came up to me and was like, oh, you really were. You were huge in giving me that discipline. And because of that discipline, now I'm able to go on and do bigger things. And really, I think, not shield them, or maybe shield them from the divorce or from what I've went through. Or I call myself the guinea pig, where I go through things first, and then my siblings either see it or somehow I protect them from it, which sometimes they don't understand. And then I think later now there's still some anger or some agitation when I'm like, why was I the parent? Why did I have to be this? Why did I? And so I've realized that's coming up later in life. But while being the young child, being that parental figure, and then also being a teacher was a lot about protecting. And I think that's my core when it comes to being a teacher, when it comes to being a brother or even a friend, is I'm a huge protector. And even same with the union stuff is I don't like when the powerful or somebody who has power takes advantage of the small guys. Like that's messed up. And I don't handle that well. And I don't care,
Yeah.
what
It's
side
the
you're on.
injustice.
Yeah. It's the injustice. And I'm really for my friends, myself, my family at the end of the day. And yeah.
As someone who's watched you grow up, I will say this: you were a kid who always wanted to help, who was a good kid,
Yeah.
who was respectful of others, who lent a helping hand. You would help me with Miss Lexi till all hours of the night doing sets and props, and probably
Oh, I
most of
loved it
it
so
like
much.
I know you did.
And I know this
But
is so wild. Sorry to cut you off, but I remember as a
Oh, yeah,
kid
no,
where it
please.
was like, okay, when I die, I want to go die in center stage, right? Or I want to be a ghost in center stage. Like that was my thing. I was like, okay, instead of going to heaven, I don't want to go there. I want to go to the center stage studio and be part of the ghosts. And I was like, what the hell? I'm like, shit, there's gonna be a whole bunch of kids popping up as ghosts at the center stage studio, because that was my place, man. That was where I felt comfortable, where I felt safe. I think the key word there is safe. And if I didn't have that, who knows what would have happened. I don't think I would be where I am to now, or where I would be now without the center stage studio, because that was my safe space and the community that I built there. I mean, family. It really is family. Yeah, but I don't think I would be alive. I know that sounds wild, but there were times where it's just like, okay, if I didn't have this place, I would be lost. And when you're lost, that doesn't lead to good things. So,
Well, I think that after school programs, I could get into a whole podcast on that,
me too.
but are essentially what saved me as well,
Yeah.
what saved you, what saved so many kids. It's like I say, if anything that you can spend your money on as a parent, spend it on an after school activity, because
Yep.
it's a place where you can belong,
Yep.
I mean, obviously you're going to pick a place that holds the same morals and values. I always say that.
Yeah.
You want to choose an after school program that has the same morals and values as you do, in your household. But it is a place where if you have a bad day at school, you have a bad day at home, there is a safety. And I think that our studio is very special, the Center Stage Studio. But,
it is.
you know,
Funny story. I saw actually an old past CSS student who I used to teach. She came up to me and she goes, "Oh my God, Mr. Chase, you were huge in my life. Oh my God, I can't believe that's you." Da, 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 da. And I was like, "What?" And that made me realize, bing, wow, what I went through, I was able to help the next person.
Yeah,
Right? And the next
because
child or the next student.
you were a student
Yes.
at 7. You went on to a performing arts center. You went on to a performing arts school, OSHA. Then you came back and you started teaching.
Yep.
And then you went on to do some Broadway stuff, came back and
Yep.
offered your talents again to help me
Yep.
teach and be a role model at the studio.
Yep.
And, inspire kids, and then you keep teaching. I mean, I'm still calling you. You're like, I'm on Broadway. I'm like, well, can you come and teach?
Yeah, no. I was just kind of like talk about how maybe even I discovered center stage and how my good friend, it was a fluke. Like that's where I do believe in God, universe, aliens, or whatever you believe in, because it literally, God was like, hey, Chase, come here. We're going to move your life into this direction, which was so wild. And it was my best friend, Nicolina. She lives down the street from me. I was at a different performing arts school, didn't like it. Wasn't my thing. And I was like, okay, well, now I'm lost. And I think my best friend realized that. And she's like, hey, my friend dropped out of the summer camp at the studio down the street. I think they were doing High School Musical. And she said, hey, I know it's Sunday night. Camp starts Monday. You want to go? And I was like, yes, let's do it. And that's where the journey began. I think that's the intro. Dun, dun, dun.
Well,
And it was you and your flip-flops. You had your flip-flops on. You had the table outside. It was you and Tony. And it was just you two. And it was one little room. With the one room. But holy, that room was so fun. The energy, it was seismic, right? It was just whoa.
The funny thing about that is that I tell people that, now we have a big studio. We have 6 dance rooms. We have a theater. We have, but we started off with... Right, I remember this dance studio next to us spending all this money, which we didn't have.
Yeah.
And they were like thousands upon thousands of dollars in aesthetics. And I do understand that aesthetics are important, but we had this one little damn room with these, I remember this Devin Doherty, Tony's friend, brought these boxes that he had just found on the street.
Yep.
We put them up, we leveled them off, put carpet from Home Depot over these boxes, and that was our stage with the shower curtains that go in across.
Yep.
And
don't forget the bathroom. Lily peeing
all over the stage.
And the bathroom, all the time. Restrooms. And what's so funny?
Oh, and the
student. Yep. So the past student who came up to me, she talked about the hierarchy of dressing rooms. So if you were the lead, you got the bathroom. If you were ensemble, you were next to Mr. Tony in the tech side. It wasn't even the tech booth; it was the tech curtain. So if you were the lead, you got the bathroom. And then
exactly. If you were one of the leads, you got the bathroom.
Yeah,
which was like this big.
Yeah, which was like this big, but there was at least like 5 leads. And like, why is everyone getting cast as lead? And then the ensemble was in the side closet.
Stuck like this.
Yeah, stuck like this. Of you. And here's Mr. Tony doing the lights going.
No. Do you remember when? Oh my God, Sierra McCann, her little brother, was so upset, crying because he didn't have a mustache. And Tony he goes, Tracey, he needs a mustache. I go, he doesn't need a mustache. Let's just go. It's in between scenes.
Yeah.
He needs a mustache. He won't stop crying. I don't know what to do. I go, deal with it. So I went across the thing. All of a sudden I look over, I open the shower curtains to the front.
Meanwhile, you can see through the shower curtains.
No. Yeah, he has a mustache. Where did he get the mustache? Tony took a permanent marker because he didn't know what to do and put a mustache on this kid who was on his way to Italy the next day.
Wild. I mean,
thank God the mom was such a sweetie pants.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But it meant a lot to that child, and that's what we forget. Is it means the world to them.
I was so angry at Tony for putting the stupid permanent marker mustache, but at the same token, he was smiling from ear to ear, and his mother was like, is that I'm like, I am so sorry. I don't know why he thought. And that kid, he mobbed that mustache all through Italy. So excited. They came home like 3 weeks later, and he was like, he was so excited about talking about his mustache to anyone who would listen, because it wouldn't go away for 3 weeks. So anyway, okay,
it's just one of many stories and of many students and people who have passed through.
So you're going through all this. You're finding yourself, and
God, Universe, Aliens comes in and says, "Hey, we're gonna plop you and put you into this situation." Which is
right. Okay.
I mean, the center stage was just becoming a thing. I mean, I think I came the summer after it started, so it's maybe been open for a year now.
It was like less than a year.
Yep.
It was less than a year.
Just you and Mr. Tony, and maybe one counselor, but you had many students, and I think that was you being a hustler. You hustled.
Oh.
You got those kids in the door, dude.
No, I remember like getting up at 6 a.m., bringing my pillow to the studio, and just sleeping by the phone in case it rang. We're going through that. And now you're starting to question your sexuality.
Yeah. And that was a young age thing too, where I was just like, okay, I have attraction towards dudes, or I have attraction towards the same sex. What's going on? But also now growing up in Orange County, that's not allowed. And especially my family was very religious, and I would consider myself spiritual or religious. But still, there's some things, unfortunately, with the church that are like, no, you can't do this. And I think people take the scripture and then like twist it to manipulate it in the way that they want. And so that's what was going on. So I was told, you can't be gay. That's not allowed. From many people, and also growing up in the public school system before I went to OSHA, that was the same rhetoric that was being talked about. And I know there was propositions like Prop 4 that were like anti-gay marriage. So there was a lot of anti-gay propaganda being spewed. And unfortunately, that was the same time that I was discovering my sexuality and what it was. Because then you also deal with a lot of people who are putting their own opinions on you, where they're like, well, you act a certain way, you're gay. Well, not necessarily, I don't think. I think there's a lot of metro men, which we've had that conversation before, where you're like, hey, there's like Ryan Seacrest, like there's a lot of metro men who date women, but I mean, might be closeted. But again, we had this conversation at a young age, and you were very supportive, and so were my friends. But again, it's the battle with myself, because it's like, if I wanted this easy life, I would be straight, right? Or if I wanted to choose the easy way out, I would just say, okay, I'm straight and I don't have to deal with any adversity. I don't have to deal with any judgment. I don't have to deal with negative family members, because it is tough. And especially being the golden child too, to come out gay, like what the, that's like, what, that my son isn't like that. Or, so it's taken 27 years and it's still a journey.
Well, I want to go specifically to your parents, and I personally heard, I'm not going to say who, one of your parents say that they would disown you if they found out that you were gay, and they were watching another child on stage, and it was very off-putting, obviously, but what were your experiences with that?
I for sure heard the same thing. And that's what's so scary to me now with children and dealing with children who are gay and their parents are not very for it. But yeah, no, it was a situation where I had a friend that was so lucky, and I look at them as a role model, who were able to be themselves on stage and didn't have to really hide. And so they were like that on stage. And unfortunately, one of my parents said, hey, if you ever act like that, we're going to send you to public school, and some crazy things will happen to you, and maybe that will straighten you out. Where sexuality isn't a choice. I think that's just what's so wild. So you're like, okay, my brain is telling me I feel this way, but then now I have parental figures telling me the opposite. And that's where I was in a dark place. And I said, if I ever became gay, or if I had to ever come out, I would unalive myself. And that's really where I was at the time. And I was so scared. So it really pushed me way deep down in that closet for a long time. And then obviously, I call it, or not my fake self, but I split personalities, which is wild, where I have like the real Chase, and then I have the one that's like, woo, like pretending everything. And I was trying to figure out where that comes from, because sometimes it comes out, and I was like, oh, that was how I coped with my sexuality and just everything I was going through as a child. And
everything.
Growing up at a performing arts studio, I became a character. Like I learned how to become a character just to survive. And I think that is survival instincts. I mean, come on, especially if you're going to public school and there's bullying happening, like, come on, that's just natural instincts. Yep. Sorry.
Hurt people. And I think going through such a horrific divorce between the two of them, obviously, you don't have all that anger without there being a lot of love first. And that's obviously maybe where it came from. Yeah. And you say things, you're not your best self when you're going through it. And your parents were going through it.
Correct.
And you say dumb things and you do stupid things. And you kind of like, as a parent, I'm not a parent, I'm a dog parent, but I see what parents go through, and they all want so desperately to give their best life to their children. Yeah. Sometimes just taking a moment, you forget, you're so busy hustling, trying to give the best life to your kids, that you almost forget that sometimes just listening and being there. And I think that there was a small time for both of them that was the case. And that's when I think you probably dealt with, and if you're like that. And
I think they were afraid for my safety. I don't think it came from a place of hate. I think it came from a place of like, hey, we understand the real world. You're going to get beaten up. You're going to get, you're going to be in danger. So I think as a parent, that specific parent was like, hey, let me protect my child. Let me make sure that they don't get beat up or hurt out in the real world. And I think that's where it came from. And then by the grace of God, now it's like a trend to be gay, which is wild. But I also think it's also people are
Is it
more
though?
comfortable.
I
I think
mean,
people are now more comfortable to.
Okay, I like that better because I hate saying a trend because like it's like, it reminds me of like, oh, it's cool to be gay. It's not. I mean, it's still rough.
Well, it's my life. It's who I am, and that's where it's called queer baiting, which I'm not a fan of. Which I do see that a lot now, and that's just
What is called what?
queer baiting is for straight people who act gay just to get the clicks. And so that's what I mean when I say trend. It's straight people now taking my experiences, making money off of it, and they're straight. So then they turn off their computers and then they have relations with women while I'm still who I am and can't turn it off. I think community for me saved me in many ways. Performing saved me in many ways, and is a little stereotypish, but a lot of performers or people in entertainment are gay. That's just kind of fact, and that's kind of known. And I, as a teacher, I've also had experiences with students who were gay, who we knew were gay, who kind of came out were gay, but unfortunately their parents kind of did the same thing my parents did at that age and just shot it down. We're like, no, you're not. We don't. That's against what we believe in, etc. Where I was like, oh damn, that's little Chase again, and wow. That's rough, and it's sad. And there are parents out there who think like that, and at the end of the day, it just takes your kid a couple steps back, whereas you need to support them to propel them forward when they become an adult. Because that's really what it is. I think as a child, we learn skills to be a good adult, and sometimes parents think they're doing the right thing, but actually takes their kids a couple steps back, so then when they're pushed out in the real world, they're lost. And then they get into bad things, which I've seen, unfortunately, with students, and it's sad.
Same. And again, it's not having that after school activity, that community, that sense of something bigger than yourself. I'm going to fast forward to when you did actually come out to your parents. What was it? What was the catalyst for you to make that decision to come out to your parents?
Yeah, no, I was in a relationship, my second relationship with a man, and I was actually working with an influential LGBTQ plus icon, and I think she really helped me feel confident in myself. And the same with my ex. They both really did. And they're like, hey, it's kind of time. It's kind of time to tell your parents. And I was like, you know what? Let's do it. Like, let's go. And unfortunately, my grandmother was in hospice at the time. So I think that also was the catalyst too, where it's like, okay, I don't want to die with any regrets. I don't want to be like, oh, I wish I told my grandmother, because we're really close. And so I had a positive influence around me, just giving me that push, because I'm somebody who needs like to rip off the Band-Aid, very tough love, like go out there, you do this, it's going to be better, which it was. And so obviously my dad knew. He was like, hey, your brother, they saw this, da-da-da-da-da, we love you no matter what. I was like, great. Told my mom. She's like, great. We're so happy for you. So the response initial was great. It was very positive, which I was shocked. I was really shocked. But it takes time, right? It's not, that's the initial like shock response. Because I think they're also shocked, believe it or not. Or they're like, what? Okay. And then it's a process. It is a process, just like everything else. And
if I could remind anyone, it's like, okay, you don't know how people are going to react until they do. So it's like you might think that they're not going to love you, but again, it's my anxiety, like they do.
Oh, everything went through my head. I was like, okay, well, now I'm going to have to move out. Like, I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to do that. Like, I mean, that's anxiety. And you are scared. And I blame society for that, where you're like, okay, well, my plan B is to move out and do this. Okay, well, if I get cut off, then I can do. So yeah, all of that went through my head. And I was scared. I was nervous as hell. And then my grandmother too was just like, whatever you want, like, we're proud of you and we love you. And it was a positive ending to a kind of crappy beginning.
Tumultuous. Yeah.
And it took 27 years too in that journey. And I think too, because I was successful, or whatever success is, or was driven, I think that helped a lot. Unfortunately, maybe if I wasn't as successful or driven, maybe they'd be like, we don't know. I don't think so. I really hope not. But I think just being driven
makes you wonder.
And you're always going to have that wonder. But for the most part, it was very positive, and it was ripping of the Band-Aid, which now I'm so happy with myself and living my authentic life. When I feel bad and I feel sad for people who can't, and they're projecting their insecurities onto me. And I know people even older than myself who probably are gay, but are in these marriages with women, or or just hiding who they really are. And I feel so sad because I remember being stuck in that, and that is miserable. And that's not healthy at all. So I'm so proud I did it. I'm so happy that I came out. I feel free. Like finally I'm like, woo! And it's just part of the healing journey of letting it be what it was, and then letting go. Like, just let go of stuff. Like, let's move on.
Well, I do, because we are talking about society, and I do want to hit one more topic of your childhood that I think is really important. And again, for anyone listening that is going through anything that you've gone through. So you're navigating this messy divorce, and you're questioning your sexuality. And on top of that, you're a boy completely who has become obsessed with musical theater.
OMG.
So let's be honest, not all kids, or especially boys, are on board. So walk me through some of that. How was that for you?
Well, my siblings didn't have a choice because they were cast in all my shows. So I would put on major shows, and they didn't have a choice, and they actually did it. So I would write the script, I would get out the highlighters, I would do a little table read, and then I'd cast my siblings. If they didn't step up, they were fired. So,
I forgot about that.
So I would put on all these shows, and I had my little red speaker. My favorite CD was the Ashley Tisdale one. So like raunchy and naughty for like a 7-year-old. And here I am like dancing. And then my poor brother, because we shared bunk beds. The Cheetah Girls, I think, just came out, and I had a full Cheetah Girls like costume on. And what I did is I put a rope to the lights because I needed a light cue. And so here's my mom and my brother reading like a freaking Bible story. And then I come in, fucking march my ass in, be like, okay, guys, I'm ready. And then I remember I turned around and I had the string attached to the light, and I hit the fucking speaker, and then I turned the light, and it started in the Cheetah Girl show. And I just want to know what went through their heads. I mean, my poor brother he's outgoing, but he's not as outgoing as I am. I mean, all my siblings are theatrical. I think they got that from me and my dad. My dad's a very theatrical person. We were just at Disneyland, and he was singing to everyone. I'm like, okay, here's the star of Disneyland right now. But again, I was putting on shows, and I cast all my siblings. My sisters, A+, they showed up, they did the work. My brothers, they got fired a couple of times. That's okay. 3 fires. So I loved it. And I don't know where this energy came from.
Oh my God. I love it. I love it.
Down the street. And so then we were doing a whole bunch of shows. And then obviously I was taking what I was learning from center stage and then applying it to my home to make more shows, or I think workshop some of my material.
What about in school? Like, did you feel like you got bullied at all from anyone?
Yeah, 6th grade, it was drama class. And they're like, first day of school, okay, everyone, go around the circle and say your name and just do a movement. And everyone's like, Brad, Sally, and I'm like, my name is Chase, Jazz Square, and finish. And everyone was talking about it. I don't know where, you know me, I was it's like a quiet little kid with the plaid shorts, like below my knees, the freaking polo shirts, like awkward.
I have a picture of you. I'm going to.
Yeah, we need to show him. Because I'm going to put that. Like, you would not. You wouldn't think that was me because I had these plaid shorts below my knees, had this little polo, very awkward, like twitching. I wasn't outspoken normally, but then when I was performing or when I had to do, I was like, whoa, holy shoot, where'd that come from? And then, that really brought me to my debut at the Center Stage Studio, where I was an icon in my performances and would be brought into other shows, to the point where I think, remember, the school said, hey, we want you guys to come perform at our assembly. And I was the dog job. I was like, oh yeah.
You weren't even a big part. It was, we were doing Annie, and it wasn't even a big part. And they were like, but can you bring the dog catcher? I still tell that story. I know that your childhood was rough, and it had its ups and downs, and it was roller coasters, because I do remember you having a little tick between the divorce and the sexuality and being in musical theater when everyone else is, doing sport.
I was forced to do sports, by the way, and I was the cheerleader because I'd always be benched, and I was like, well, fine, if you're gonna bench me, then I'm gonna start dancing. So I was
Jazz
like,
Square.
Jazz Square. They're like, who's this kid?
Oh my God, Chase, I can't with your cuteness. But again, I'll say it again, like, you are such a good kid. I'm not saying you're not now, you're not a kid anymore, but even going through all of that, you just had a loving nature about you. And it's like, you had mentioned this earlier, but that putting on those 2 different hats, these 2 different personalities of the sad clown and then the clown, like, it's, I think a lot of people can identify with that, me included. A lot of us, that go into the industry.
What is that? Why?
the sad clown effect. It's like, Jim Carrey's is a great example of somebody who is like this amazing clown, and he's so funny, and then he's the sad clown going through a lot of depression. And actually, a lot of comedians are like that. Is my understanding.
Comedians are very smart people too. They
Well,
yeah.
I used to be a comedian. I was saying like I used to be a comedian. I'm like, yes, we're very smart.
Very smart.
Not that I'm not a comedian anymore, but
some shit who have been through some
and that's
stuff.
usually, and isn't that crazy? It's like most, there are some people who are like, to be fair, I think the only comedian I know of that like might have a perfect life, and I'm probably completely wrong, tell me in the comments, but is Will Ferrell. He just seems like he's just goes through life like Forrest Gump. Like, like just, has this, I don't know anything that's bad that's ever happened. I mean, I don't know, but like, but most people,
I rest him over Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey's my favorite. Who's your favorite?
He is my favorite because I was able to do a show with him. And I know. And like, he couldn't have been like, I don't think people understand the genius that he is. I mean, people know he's a comedic genius, but he's just a plain genius. Yeah. And I think now that he's older and he's spoken out about, against Hollywood and stuff, but I think that watching him work and just that movie is so out there that if you really looked at how he was in Me, Myself, and Irene, he plays these two personalities perfecly. Really? Like, it's so crazy.
How was that experience working on that show?
Oh, that's a whole other podcast. Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to say my middle name is embarrassing, but that's all. That's all I'll say about that for now. But anyway, so yeah, the sad clown effect, I think it's something that people like you, like me, like that have gone through it, and it's a way of coping. And to be fair, I think it's a great way of coping when you can find the humor in the most horrific things. It helps you get past it.
It helps other people too, which is wild. And I think that's a healthy way to cope with all of this stuff. Is to perform and be a comedian. And I think some of the most funny comedians are probably the most sad people. Honestly, I mean, they're on record saying how sad they really are. And I was like, what? I would have never have thought. But they put on these characters. And that's just how they cope with their trauma. And yeah, it's bittersweet.
Well, when you look back on everything you've done, Chase, everything you've accomplished, like, how does it make you feel?
Good. I have imposter syndrome, which is so wild. Where it's
don't
like,
we all?
We all do. Yeah. And I struggle with it a lot. Where I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I've just done some cool things, but then I'm like, oh crap! Like, those aren't just little things. Those are pretty big things for my age and what I want to do. And so I suffer a lot with imposter syndrome, and then that also gives me anxiety. So as much as I'm so proud of myself, I also do struggle with that. Where now that's my next hurdle, is getting past the imposter syndrome, understanding that I'm meant to do what I'm doing. Nothing will pass me by. And everything that's meant for me in my life will happen, and that it's meant for me, and that God, universe, aliens, whatever you believe in, was like, this is your journey. This is your destiny. Like, I came out of the vagina knowing what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to perform. Clearly, I was putting on shows at a young age, and then was kicking butt. And so
in the womb, you were putting on a show.
In the womb, I was putting on shows. I mean, I was putting on shows everywhere. Jazz Square. In the womb. Yeah.
I want to tell you that, Chase, I am so proud of you, and I am so flabbergasted at like how much you have been able to achieve, given I'm going to say it again because I'm burping while I'm doing this.
That sound?
I am literally like, I could feel it going up. I'm like, what is that? So,
you farting over there? Shit.
No, it was, I had a little thing
I don't know, man. I was like, dang, it's like, that's confidence right there.
I'm kidding.
I was like, shit,
I'm keeping that in.
This is edgy. This is edgy.
Listen, it is.
That's the edgy part. We fart.
Yeah, we fart, we burp, and that's how we roll.
We burp. Okay? That's edgy.
What I wanted to say to you, Chase, from the bottom of my heart, is I'm so proud of you, and I'm so honored to have been a small piece of your life that is just so incredibly
successful. You keep saying small piece, it's a big piece. It's a huge piece.
I think, I just think that any piece, I'm honored,
Yeah, I mean, I think the philosophy or the words of wisdom that I want to leave with right now is, who gives a crap? Like, go for it. Stop listening to the evil voices in your head. Stop listening to the people out there. It is your life. It is between you, yourself, and God, or the universe, or aliens, or whatever you believe in. It is nobody else's responsibility to tell you how to live your life. And that's what I'm learning now as an adult. I'm just living my life authentically. I have a download from the universe, from God, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. It's not always going to be perfect, and my journey has not been linear at all. It's been up, down, up, down, up, down. But even those downs are leading me slowly to what I'm supposed to be doing. And so right now I'm building a fintech company. I'm at Harvard Business School, their Climb New Leaders program. I'm actually trademarked entertainment technology. So I'm I'm the founding father of entertainment technology, and going to start launching a whole bunch of initiatives to start integrating technology and entertainment and really getting us ready for the new era, which is happening. And Hollywood's changing right now. And a lot of people are scared. I'm really excited, and I'm very optimistic of what is to come. We've been through a lot of stuff within the industry, but I see these new leaders emerging, and I'm excited. And hopefully I can help nurture those leaders as we go into this next era, which I am. And I'm very fortunate enough to be involved and be in the room where it's happening at a huge, high level, which that's where my imposter syndrome comes, where I'm like, am I the right person? And I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I am. Because I don't care what people think, and I don't care what people say, and I'm not drinking Kool-Aid. I'm not a Kool-Aid drinker. And I know that might be a little controversial, but I'm not. Because of what I've been through, and I think the people in my life who have guided me to where I am, they've taught me, you don't drink the Kool-Aid. You be yourself. You be authentic. You know what's right, and you know what's wrong. And you do the thing. Again, authenticity. That is the key word as well. Is just be you, be authentic. I have the energy, the woohoo. No, I'm a woohoo girl. When my MBA interviews, I don't think any MBA interview ended with a woohoo. I mean, let me know if I'm wrong, but I ended my MBA interview with a woo, and I think their face was like, oh.
I love you.
It's different.
Yeah, I will say that you probably got a lot of that weirdness from me. So yes. I will, because literally.
Yeah.
All right, rapid fire reflections. Favorite comfort food?
Ooh, I love Thai food. I love Indian food. I love food. So I'm a Taurus, and I love all food, any food. So I even eat food and then go on TikTok and look at more food.
One word to describe your life.
Wild. I think it's wild in the sense of fun, where it's all my journeys have taken me to places I never even would have imagined. I'm like, whoa. And I think that's where we go back to the yes and. I always say yes and. So someone's like, hey Chase, we're unionizing. Yes and. What do you need? Okay, boom, I'm right there. Yeah. Hey Chase, we're gonna do this project. Yes and. I'm learning now to start saying no, but I needed to say those yeses to help learn. And I think going into the trenches and actually learning is the best experience that you can have. And school's great, but I think really diving in the real world and learning from those experiences. So yes and. And that's what comes from the yes and, which is an improv rule, which I learned from you, is the yes and, which that's another piece of advice. Say yes and. Unless it's sketchy, then don't say yes. That's what I'm learning. But I need to figure that out. I'm working on that.
Well, you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that's part of life.
Thank you, Chase, again, from the bottom of my heart for sharing your truth today, your journey, your resilience, and I'm truly honored to have been a small part of that, a small slice. And if you want to connect, if you want to connect with Chase, all of his information will be in the description below. Everyone listening, no matter where you start, no matter where you started, no matter what challenges you face, your story isn't over. Keep showing up, keep believing. As Walt Disney said, if you can dream it, you can do it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, stay edgy, stay ageless, and you are legendary.